Saturday, everyone. I should say happy Saturday morning. I always say happy Saturday because, you know, it's Saturday. Ideally, hopefully, if the world is good, you're not necessarily at some kind of desk or some kind of office today. Either way, if you're under the sound of my voice, welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. There was a Bombshell story that came out, I think it was a couple of days ago. I've been meaning to get to the story a few days now, where, let's start here. Do you remember this? This was after a supposed chemical weapon strike in Damascus, if I'm not mistaken, and Douma, I'm sorry, a chemical weapon strike in Douma. Now, if you remember, the brutal dictator Bashar al-Assad supposedly had used sarin on his own people. And this image with these kids were broadcast all over the world as evidence of such that took place. Question: where's the hard evidence? This is just video footage or something. Where's the hard evidence that's showing that this took place? People started asking questions, even though mainstream media just kind of went with this story that Bashar al-Assad once again has used chemical weapons, and the United States, the world's policeman, now has to do something about it. And this set the pretext for airstrikes that the Donald Trump team, or that the President Donald Trump used against the Syrian government. This also heightened tensions between the United States and Russia, because at this point, it is very clear that Bashar al-Assad and the Russian government are in alliance. Some of us asked questions about this, though. And the questions kind of boil down to, did the opposition have the capacity to do this? Not just did they have the capacity to do this, what would be the motivation for the Syrian government to do this? They just said he was a bad guy, and because he was a bad guy, he's just gassing his own people for no reason. Clearly, he knows that Western powers are going to get involved in this process. Why would he do it? It makes absolutely no sense. But the mainstream media just ran with this story. Robert Fisk went to Syria. And in going to Syria, he talks to the people. He goes to the hospital, and he comes back and says, there's no chemical weapon strike here. Nobody, he can find anybody that was involved in this. There was another journalist, I can't think of the gentleman's name, same thing. We can't find anything dealing with this. Russia, in this picture behind me, let's see if I can blink myself out for a moment. They were holding a panel conference. The kids that were in the video are the kids that they have right here, and they're making the point that this never took place. It never happened. Now, this conference was roundly ignored as Russian propaganda, but the irony of it is the propaganda here was the actual video footage that was taking place. Another journalist from Syria, a BBC reporter, comes out with bombshell tweets. He's a well-known reporter, so he's not a fringe person. And he says this: Riam Delati. After almost 6 months of investigations, I can prove without a doubt that the Douma hospital scene was staged. No fatalities occurred in the hospital. All the white helmet activist people I spoke to, either in Idlib or Euphrates Shield areas. Only one person was in Damascus. Russia and at least one NATO country knew about what happened in the hospital. Documents were sent. However, no one knew what really happened at the flats, apart from the activists manipulating the scene there. This is why Russia focused solely on discrediting the hospital scene, but never approached the block of flats and curtailed access immediately after Douma takeover. I can tell you that Jaish al-Islam ruled Douma with an iron fist. They co-opted activist doctors and humanitarians with fear and intimidation. I'm going to explain what this means. And just so you can see who he is, Riam Delati, BBC Syria producer. BBC producer. Again, not a French person. He's a reporter. He's been doing this for years. After almost 6 months of investigations, I can prove without a shadow of doubt that the Douma hospital scene was staged. No fatalities occurred in the hospital. All the white helmet activists and people I spoke with in the area in Idlib or Euphrates Shield areas. Only one person in Damascus. I guess that part speaks for itself. Russia and at least one NATO country knew about what happened in the hospital. documents were sent. However, no one knew what really happened in the flats apart from activists manipulating the scene there. This is why Russia focused solely on discrediting the hospital scene. The point he's making is the hospital scene being discredited. Russia was actually right in this. It was staged. It wasn't real. The other arguments that people were making in this was whether it was Bashar al-Assad, if it did happen, and then the secondary point, did it happen at all? A lot of us, I think myself included, made the point that this looked like it was staged, that they were using this as a pretext. They didn't even care about an investigation. It was just a pretext. Jump to the end. OPCW comes back saying chemical weapons weren't used. So the flats part. No one knew what really happened at the flats apart from activists manipulating the scene. What they're talking about is like white helmets, and some of the people who were at the scene were manipulating the scene after the events, after the bombings. And so there was no way to know what happened in that situation because they were manipulating the scene. It's like police come and they court off the scene because they want to be able to do an investigation. Well, you can't really do an investigation if there are people still mucking it up for propaganda purposes. But never approach the block of flats and curtail access immediately after Douma takeover. I can tell you that Jaish al-Islam ruled Douma with an iron fist. They co-opted activists, doctors, and humanitarians with fear and intimidation. Essentially, it sounds like he's making the point that, look, if they needed to get people to do a video, they could have gotten people to do a video. Like, it's not beyond the bounds of norm, or it's not beyond the bounds of reason that they could get people there to stage a film, especially if they're trying to get Western intervention by pretending that they've been struck with chemical weapons. This was a bombshell. BBC and the mainstream media ignored this entirely, completely ignored this. But that's, I'll leave Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge was acting up with me, so I just went directly to the article itself. Zero Hedge has a little bit more information associated with it that goes beyond the main point of what was taking place here. Just know, though, that we attacked another country on the pretext of something that we most likely knew was a staged event. There are times where stage events happens where, it's more hands-off on this point, but this was one of those things where no direct evidence, no investigation. These guys did it even though they had no reason to do it, with mainstream media saying, well, he did it because he was a bad guy, which is an utterly ridiculous reason for somebody to do something like that, particularly when that person was trying to cling to power like grim death. So I'm going to leave this here. This one wasn't meant to be long, 8 minutes. That's not too bad. But this should have been a bombshell. This should have been a bombshell. White helmets given immunity like the Nazis. Wow. White helmets are connected with ISIS and Al Qaeda. Yes, they be false. Yeah, they are. Check out the nonsense report from The Intercept with Bellycat. Uh-oh. Well, I mean, The Intercept is various people like James Risen, who's, full on in this kind of Russia stuff. Same progressives were screaming this was a staged event. Everyone tried to make her look crazy, but the truth proving her right. Darn, Debbie was a great researcher. I hope she was all right. Debbie wasn't the only one. I mean, there were several of us that was making the point that this was staged. They didn't have any direct evidence associated with it. They didn't care about any direct evidence associated with it. And, this kind of just rushing to the end. Yeah, this one was somewhat obvious. Yeah, this one was somewhat obvious. All right, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. And my wife and I are going to have a patron appreciation show tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. So please join us. Immediately after the patron appreciation show, that show will be held purely for the patrons. So I'll leave this here. Thank you all. You all have a great evening. I may see you this evening, but maybe not. Have a good one, guys. And